I Kwasla Shir Pachwai in Minaimoma Inkna Shwaniksha Shalela Ku Pashin Witki Shanoa Pinkham. Good afternoon, my people, my relatives. My name is Shanoa Pinkham. I'm Yakima Southern Cheyenne, and I work at the Illahee Fund as the Yahout Food and Land Restoration Program Coordinator. I've been with Illahee Fund for the last several years, and I'm excited to be moderating this incredible panel we have, some of our youth leaders. Um, this work is really important that we've been talking about all this entire day. And, as part of Not Illy Fun, we were really interested in hoping to get a youth perspective and to share some of the work that the next generation is doing for our Mother Earth. So we have a few panelists joining us here today. I'm going to let them introduce themselves, but I'm just going to say their names. And for folks who may have just joined on, feel free to put your questions in the Q&A panel or post at the bottom as we've been doing. And stay tuned for the end when we do our final raffle for the day. And just a little bit of work or a little bit of background before we get in. Not Really Fun has a really great program called our Youth Land and Restoration and Food Sovereignty cohort that I've had the pleasure to be part of and oversee these last couple of years. We do restoration work at Daybreak Star Cultural Center. And so personally, I'm very excited to see the incredible work that our youth are doing here as well. And for folks who have other programs that they might be part of or have other opportunities for our youth, definitely feel free to put that in the chat or engage in the questions. So I think what we're gonna do is we're gonna start with Free, if that's okay. And I'll let Free introduce himself and share a bit about the work that he's doing in the community. I know we had a few slides. I'm not sure if we wanted to show any of those for this piece, but we might afterwards. So Free, I'll just pass it on to you.
Hi, Shka. Thank you, Shanoa. Yeah, and feel free to share those photos. I kind of just intended on like having them cycled through anyway, so no specific order matters. But yeah, so Asia, Nostalgia CM, Free Borsey, Tsetnesna, Sakwilam Tsetnesna, Choklamisen, Ait Squile. Good afternoon, friends and relatives. My name is Free Borsey. My traditional name is Sakwilam, and I am from the Lummi Nation, or the Laktamish people, or the people of the sea. I work for an Indigenous-led nonprofit and storytelling company called Children of the Setting Sun Productions, based out in Bellingham, Washington. And a little bit of the history behind Children of the Setting Sun Productions. It was actually started in the 1920s by one of our respected elders who was a child at treaty signing. And basically, it was a storytelling group who would travel around the Salish Sea and educating people on our newcomers on our way of life and who we are. And there's been different variations of Children of the Setting Sun productions throughout the years. But the latest version is a 501c3 production company, and we specialize in magnifying Indigenous voices and stories in light of the climate crisis. We hope to educate the world in that way so that we can hopefully make the changes necessary to ensure the future for our future generations. A little bit about my role at Children of the Setting Sun Productions. I kind of wear many hats in the organization, and I do event planning work, as well as some institution work with Setting Sun Institute. But more recently, I've been more active with the Young Tribal Leaders Program, and more specifically the YAY team, or the Young and Indigenous podcast. And the podcast essentially has the same mission as the production company. We hope to gather stories and essentially just share them with the world, and we kind of in an easier fashion, more accessible fashion through podcasts and um, audio recordings. Uh, yeah, recently I applied for recently I applied for a fellowship opportunity through Cultural Survival to do a podcast series called Plants. And the series will include five episodes and seven knowledge keepers, both Indigenous and non-Indigenous, who will be sharing their stories and their relationships to the plant world. And yeah, one of the knowledge keepers is actually attending this meeting right now. So shout out Morgan Brown. She'll be featured on the podcast. But yeah, so the podcast will feature five episodes focused on individual perspectives as well as more macro level perspectives. One episode will be talking about old growth forests and the work that's being done locally to preserve and protect our legacy forests in Washington State, and to highlight the importance of legacy forests and why logging contemporary logging practices are inefficient and actually very destructive, and yeah, why legacy forests are kind of our last chance of gaining back those old growth forests that the Pacific Northwest is used to having. Another episode will feature more individual perspectives like Anna Cook and Morgan Brown or Morgan Sylvan Rose, who'll be talking about their personal relationships with the plants, with the plant world, and really just how their lives are really guided and dictated by the plant world, and all of the relationships and knowledge that are kept by the plant world. Yeah. So, and these photos here are some of the Yay team. There's above we were. It looks like we were on canoe journey at the Lummi Landing, making our way down to Muckleshoot with the team. The second slide or the second bubble below is two youth leaders who are practicing weaving. We were able to go out and harvest this spring some cedar, and the young lady standing up with the glasses, she's actually a master weaver, recognized as a master weaver in her community already. That's her story to tell. And down below, it looks like we're right in the mix of canoe journey. I'm not sure where that landing is, but it looks like some of our youth team just landed and got off a really long paddle. So, yeah.
Wonderful. Thank you so much, Free. Yeah, this is incredible. And I love the photos that you've been able to share with us today. I think we'll have an opportunity to dive into each other's projects a little bit more. Just kind of want to introduce them, just kind of skim the surface a little bit until we can start asking those deeper questions. But NiRae, I was hoping you could go next and share with us a bit about your work.
Yeah, hi everyone. My name is NiRae. I use she, her pronouns. I was born and raised in Seattle. I grew up in the Central District and Rainier Beach due to gentrification, so kind of just house hopping around the South Seattle area. I initially got into the EJ or environmental justice work just because I experienced, just firsthand experience of the environmental health disparities in my community. And being raised by two teachers, I've always been very inquisitive and always felt like I needed to be a leader. And that kind of led me into doing the work of advocating for my community, advocating for myself, and wanting to just seek out more education and knowledge. And so a big part of that is just my passion for education. And so I went to school initially for sustainable development. And that was in New Mexico. And while I was learning about urban planning and taking environmental science classes, I had so many questions about why is there so much knowledge in environmentalism, but our communities still experience all of these issues and all these disparities, especially Black, Brown, and Indigenous folks. And so with that outlook, my advisor was like, you ask too many questions for a scientist, like you should go into policy. And so that led me into changing my major into law and justice. And once I graduated, at the time I was working at the Urban League of Metropolitan Seattle. And with my colleague, we started a advocacy and community engagement department. And the Urban League of Metropolitan Seattle is a Black nonprofit that was started in around 1910, and our state affiliate in Seattle was established in 1930. And for the longest, we did not have an advocacy and community engagement department. It was mainly focused on direct services. And so as somebody that was really focused on how to advocate for long-term systemic change, my colleague and I decided, let's start a department and let's be the young folks that, do good trouble. And since then, and I'm sorry, my voice is in and out because I'm developing a cold. But since then, I was able to experience so many people and so many projects that have led to just my knowledge and background in environmental justice. And a part of that includes being appointed to the Environmental Justice Council for the state. And so I was appointed 2021 or 2022. I'm sorry, I can't remember. My brain is fogged, but I was appointed as the youth representative. And the youth representative is between 18 to 25 years old. So technically, as I turn 25 next year, I will be aged out. And so a huge part of my project on the council is creating a youth advisory council, just because of just the overburdened job of having to represent youth all around the state. And so with that council, I'm hoping that the next youth representative will have extra support and there'll be more, equitable representation for youth in the EJ world. Aside from that, I was referred to the Not Illahee Fund, Sovereign Futures cohort, which I honestly did not expect to get in as a non-Native person. But I feel so honored that I was given the opportunity to be in this cohort, and I've learned so much and made so many friends. And I think we're going to be talking about our project a little bit later, so I'll save a little bit more about that for later.
No, definitely. And, I'm just really grateful you could join us. There's a lot of long-standing history between Black and Indigenous folks that often gets swept under the rug. There's the greater society, the white folks would rather sometimes divide us all the time and have us believe we're divided. But I'm grateful that you can be here with us in this space, and we can keep learning from each other. And I'm really excited to hear more about your project too. And yeah, with that, we'll pass it to Joelle, who will be sharing more about her work.
Illahee, Joelle Jones. My name is Joelle, and I'm a food gatherer for the Yakama Nation. I'm Umatilla and Yakama. My project, it's still being decided right now. I haven't solidified on something. Mostly it's about plants, reconnecting, teaching, and all that stuff. Yeah, I wasn't very prepared, sorry.
No, Joelle is being very modest. I've had the opportunity of seeing a lot of Joelle's work in the community through the Tend, Gather, Grow Plateau cohort held from GRUB, which is an organization based in Olympia called Garden Raised Urban Bounty, in which they invited different tribal plant knowledge keepers from various plateau tribes. So folks from Yakima came, folks from Kalispell came, folks from Spokane came, and I was also part of that cohort. So I was really grateful to have Joelle sharing that space with us. So I think Joelle's being very modest right now. She was the one who actually led one of the teaching demonstrations for us with regards to these plants that were being shown here. So yeah, I think often, so don't downplay our skills. I think the plants teach us to listen as well. So thank you so much, everyone, for kind of giving us a brief overview of some of your work, and just kind of wanted to dive into some of these questions that we prepared, and some that I've just been kind of percolating a little bit since listening to you guys introduce your work and introduce where you come from and sharing your language and your background with us. I was wondering if maybe you could start off a little bit, and I know some of you have kind of touched on this, and feel free to popcorn your answers to one another, so there's no real like I'm not gonna go in a super square with each of you, but like if you guys want to just like popcorn it to whoever next, that'd be great. But if you guys just want to start off sharing where your personal inspiration came from with your work, like what was it that inspired you to get on this path, or who was it? I know Monique talked a little bit earlier this morning about who were those cookie people that kind of helped you see that vision for yourself in your life. And yeah, I'll give you guys a few seconds to maybe bake with that in your mind. All right, I started with free. I'm gonna go with NiRae.
Lord, I had a feeling it would be me. But yeah, I think I briefly mentioned it earlier. Just I was raised by two teachers. I'm also the oldest sibling, and so a lot of my personality is just being very inquisitive, being very solution based, and always wanting to be a leader, and set a good example. Um, and that required me to lean on a lot of role models and a lot of mentors, and just be able to accept my mistakes, and always have a learning attitude. And so I would say what really inspires me is just wanting to know more, and believing that knowledge is power. And where I'm from Rainier Beach and in the Central District. And um, if you've been to Seattle, you could see the disparities between the different neighborhoods around Seattle, especially with the schools. And as I was in college, I was just learning so much. And a lot of the stuff that I learned should have been taught in schools. And a lot of the issues that I had questions about lead back to policy, law, legislation, and all of that. And so I just decided that I wanted to really focus on that so that I can give back my knowledge to my community, and also just advocate for myself, my family, and just the community in general. Um, and so I would say a big inspiration is education, and then also the principle of Sankofa, which is to always look back and take what you can, to move forward. It's an African principle, and that makes me always look back and research history, and be skeptical about the history that's being taught in our schools, and always lean on our ancestors for what hasn't been written down. So, and I'll pass it to Free.
Ashka, thank you for sharing, NiRae. Man, well, this journey for me, I think, begins a long time ago, as a young boy running through the woods with my friends, or spending hours in trees. And I actually climbed trees until I was well into my teenage years. I definitely was that kid, but there was just a different kind of love, for certain trees and places. I felt like it was a place of like solitude for me, and being up in a tree, and it was almost empowering to be able to like climb to the top of a tree and see, or just to be able to say that you did that, and to see the rest of the world. I'm probably pretty lucky that I didn't fall much. So, but yeah, as I as I got older, I never had really considered, going or really divulging into the plant world. And it was something that kind of just landed on me one day. I think when I was in my later teen years, I started pondering life a lot more and trying to understand, my purpose and really all of our purpose for being here. And in my community, we're traditionally pre-colonialism. We're heavy trade community. Some families would hunt, and some families would gather, some families would fish, and different families had rights and access to different areas that other families did not. And I come from more of a hunting family, but I never really enjoyed the idea of like killing an animal. I could do all the prep work. I can skin a deer, an elk, and butcher, quarter it up, etc. But I could never bring myself to actually shoot an animal. And I kind of just pondered, what is my role, or what will my role be in my community if I don't follow these footsteps, if I don't really want to be a fisherman, or I don't want to be a hunter. And that's kind of where uh, plants came into the picture. So I started reading some very like generic like plant books early on, and just like really anything that I could get my hands on. And a quote that really stuck out to me early on was from our selfish or the Selfish Gene by Richard Dawkins, and he was talking about plants, and he had said, ironically, we think that we're the farmers of plants, but if you think about the actual cycle of life, plants are actually farming us, and like that like stuck to me. I was like, huh, yeah, that is true. And I had I'd gotten injured. I dislocated my elbow playing rugby a couple of years ago, and I had made a post on Facebook, just kind of like look at this, it's kind of gross, but because there was a video, and Morgan Brown, she the uh, lady attending the meeting, the knowledge keeper that will be on one of the episodes, she actually messaged me and said that she has some salves and medicines that would help my arm. And I had already been taking medications and going to like physical therapy for a couple of weeks. And her medicine arrived, and like I could like move my arm like that, like when her medicine arrived, and it was just like purple and swollen, and just like it hurt a lot, like still even weeks after. And it was like as soon as I put the medicine on, it was like almost instant like relief. And not even like a week later, I could like move my arm like this. And I graduated from PT like a month and a half early in advance, and I like credit that solely to like that medicine being that strong, and like those good prayers that were put into that medicine. And just that experience slingshot me into like I need to learn. I need to know about this. And so I just dove in. I started reading authors like Scott Cluse and um, old herbalists like Erna Gunther, and just trying to like understand that history of herbalism, um, and trying to understand um, more about like our I guess plant world and our relationship with the plants. Yeah, I mean that was long, but yeah, I mean that's really, fast forward to today, I've been able to connect with amazing knowledge keepers surrounding plants, and I've been able to learn a lot about the Lummi, specifically Lummi's history with plants, and our traditional harvesting practices, and technologies that were all made from plants and didn't go through much processing, in order to have them. So, yeah, Aishka.
Awesome. And I think Joelle, if you want to take us away with this last question.
Could you repeat the question again?
Yes. So the question was, what was it that inspired you to pursue plant medicine knowledge or the traditional foods, or who was it that kind of helped you along your path, or maybe who believed in you when you were learning, was one of those encouraging things in your life that kind of helped you become who you are with your traditional food gathering?
So my mother, my grandmother, and majority of the women before me were all food gatherers. So it's one of the things that was like an expectation in my life. But the thing that really solidified it is books and the internet and just knowing that those plants gave their life to us so they could take care of us. And I think that's like really amazing. So that's what kind of kept me interested in the whole plant world.
Thank you. I know something your mom, and I know in the slides that we had for your intro, there was a picture of you and your mom, and then your grandma, your Kasla. So I think it's really powerful that you've had these 3 generations. We see that in your family moving forward with preserving our plant knowledge and taking it into the future. And I guess kind of going off of that, for everyone else, what is one of your favorite parts of your work? Whether that's plant knowledge or the individual projects you're working on, or learning more about your ancestral roots. What is one of your favorite things about that process? What has that been like for you? A few seconds to let that question sink in.
I can go first just to continue the cycle.
Right.
But I would say I'm just a very introverted person. And I think working out in farms or in the food justice realm, a lot of people connect over food. That's like our cultural tradition, is connecting over food and building community. And that has gotten me out of my shell so much. And to meet so many different people, to be embraced by so many different cultures has been probably one of the biggest highlights of this project, or just the work I do around environmental and food justice in general. And I'll pass it to Joelle.
One of my favorite things is to illustrate the plants, and I like to share what the plants are through my illustrations. So I think that's one of my favorites.
Thank you, Joel. Honestly, I just love stories. I love hearing stories and different individual stories, because everybody does have a story. You know, if you walk this life, you have a story. And being able to work at Children of the Setting Sun, it's given me the opportunity to travel and really, I mean, outside of setting up all the cameras and stuff, you're really just listening to people tell their story, you know. And yeah, it might be like framed a little bit, but for the most part, you know, it's their authentic selves and their experiences, you know, with whatever it is that they're talking about. I've also loved hearing stories of resilience and resistance, and uh, like going out to the Elwha tribe, the Elwha community. They just about 10 years ago now removed 2 dams that were on their river, the Elwha River, and that fight took over 100 years in order for them to kind of come out victorious. And the same story is currently being told on the Klamath rivers, with those 4 dams being removed, which will be the biggest dam removal in the world when all said and done. But you know, we got to meet Francis Charles and the Yurok and Karuk women who are responsible, or had played a big role in that process, and just being able to see, one, hear these stories, and two, to like see a happy ending. That's been really impactful for me.
Wonderful. Yeah, no, thank you so much. You all have such a different perspective in bringing those things to the table. I'm kind of curious. And I know you kind of touched a little bit on it, Joelle, with the illustrations, and then of course Free with the stories and the video projects, and then NiRae with making space at these institutions that historically aren't really like, welcoming to youth. I'm just kind of curious what kind of advice or even some feedback you may have for youth today who are also trying to learn or who want to make that space or find that space in different places.
I can kick us off. Um, honestly, just get involved. There's no prerequisites or like credentials that you need to have to be involved in this work. Just get out there, learn as you go, and things will come. There's plenty of work that needs to be done, and if you're looking to protect the environment, or you're looking to learn how to make medicine, there's opportunity all around you. You just have to open yourself up and be confident in yourself.
I can go next. Gosh, I have so much. I don't think this question was on the panel, right? But I would say definitely just make room. One of the things that I think our generation does best is acknowledging the harms done when youth aren't involved in making decisions for our future. And so I'm always thinking about succession and who can come after me. And I think that's really important as I am getting older and I'm realizing that there is a huge age gap between me and the folks that I work with. And I'm wondering, if, and not to blame the older generation at all, but I'm wondering if we had continued to think about succession, would there continue to be a huge age gap in these institutions? And so making room is a big one.
So I think just put your time and energy into it and dedicating your work and time, I guess. Your passion. And nature will take care of you. So I don't think there's any way to mess up with that.
Oh, that's beautifully said. Thank you. And who's your little friend there? Just curious, who is that? Oh,
Ignosh lady.
oh, so adorable. Oh, that's so sweet. Thank you, lady, for joining us as well. Thank you guys for your answers so far. This has been really, really eye-opening. And let me see. I think another question I'd like to ask. And folks in the audience, feel free to include a few of your own in the Q&A. We're pretty open, although I still have several that I wouldn't mind getting through unless anybody else has any, or maybe we'll just do one more question from myself, and until we see any more in the audience, we'll come up with the next area. But I just wanted to ask, and if there was not necessarily one teaching, but maybe a particular teaching from either your tribe or your community that kind of has helped move you forward through difficult times. I know for myself, sometimes songs And I know maybe Joelle could understand this a little bit more. In our tribe, we have what's called washet. And so we have these songs that honor the first foods. And so sometimes when I'm feeling depressed, those songs sometimes come to my mind. And things, and so I'm just kind of curious for you, but all of you, if there was something similar like that, or something in your teaching, or something that kind of helps move you forward, because it's definitely easy, I think, to kind of get discouraged in today's world, and just feeling really inspired by you guys. So
Yeah, I have one. I think potlucks are something that really have had a huge positive impact on my life. Just seeing the people, come together and gather, and everybody contribute to the table, and just being able to share songs, dance, and really joy and love, and being able to stand, with your community, and uh, just and we're always potlucking. Like there's so many potlucks throughout the year that, like, you're always with your community, and I think that's something that really uh, has helped in my life. Being able to have that community and be able to really. I loved NiRae's quote. Uh, connecting over food. Um, that's that's kind of the essence of potlucks. Yeah.
I can go next. Actually, I'll second that, what Free said. I've noticed that a lot of times I feel discouraged as a young person, um, and really just connecting with other folks over food or just really fun events. Um, and what I've noticed too is just a young advocate being able to mobilize my friends and family and having them mobilize their friends and family. It really isn't that hard if there's food involved. And so I would definitely say potlucks, any events with food, good conversation, good music is something that helps me. And I'll pass it to you, Joelle.
So I think it would be the respect for everything living and all plants and animals and all such. And it's in alignment altogether. What do I say? It wasn't perfect. I had something written, I'm sorry. Mom, I don't know what to do. I'm sorry, I don't know what to say. I don't have an answer.
Oh, take your time. And no, Joelle, I've enjoyed hearing what you've been sharing so far, especially about the plant medicines. You know, I've been in many workshops with you, and seeing how you take your time and listen. And I feel like that's often been maybe an underrated teaching from the plants themselves. And so, this is we're all chill here. There's no pressure. And yeah, I know we're kind of getting a little closer to that time. There are a few questions here. I know I don't know if Nicolette, you want to go through them. It seems like there's one that maybe one or two that we may have heard so far. I think, but I know some other folk. I know NiRae wanted to share a little more about their project and things. So want to make sure we still have time for everything.
Yeah, thanks, Shanoa. I'm going to jump into Atlas's question, which says, "You all are incredible. Thank you for sharing. Building on NiRae's share out, but the question is for everyone. What has been a time where someone in the next generation ahead of you made room, and how did that feel?"
Can you repeat the question?
think it was, when has there been a time that someone from the next generation kind of made room for you or helped you feel included?
I feel like there's been a couple of times in my life where the next generation really not only like made room, but also just like grabbed me, yanked me up, kind of put me in that position. And um, I think the first one that comes to mind is one of my late best friends and mentors. His name is Justin Finkbonner. I grew up in foster care, and I grew up kind of not detached from my culture, but not necessarily a part of this aspect of my culture, which is called canoe journey. And essentially, what canoe journey is, and blip is different nations will have traveling canoes that can that can fit up to like 15 people, maybe more, maybe less. And we leave from our homelands to the designated host tribe, this year being Muckleshoot. And you stop at tribes on the way down, and you stay the night there, and you potluck, and you share song and dance, and then you ask permission to leave that territory, and you continue your journey. And those tribes will send their canoes. So as you get closer to the host tribe, the fleet ends up growing, and I believe this year there was, I think, 160 canoes. So it was the biggest that it's ever been, and just a phenomenal event. Anyway, my late skipper kind of groomed me into being a skipper from the time I joined the canoe family, and in his passing, I ended up having to step forward and take on that role as lead skipper of the canoe family, and I continue to be a skipper today. So that's one of the earliest kind of like moments where he kind of threw me in that seat and taught me everything, and now today I'm kind of playing that role for my community.
Thank you for that, Free. I have another question from Rosetta in the chat, who asks, how do you stay motivated when a lot of your voices seem to be ignored or left out? Our young ones have a lot of wisdom like you and need to be heard. So anyone's open to answer, but if you don't want to, you're free not to.
I'll answer that. Honestly, this is gonna sound very sarcastic, but social media, really. There's a lot of memes. I think our generation has a lot of dark humor and a lot of way of connecting over some traumatic issues. And that has helped me so much with the backlash from, older folks or just folks who don't have the same outlooks as me, realizing that I have a community that understands to the point of making it comedy. And, I think sometimes laughter heals as well. And so I would say just having a good sense of humor, and social media does a great part of doing that for us. So.
Awesome. Thank you. Thank you so much. And then we have one more question, which I think might actually tie in with what you were hoping to share with us, NiRae. But this particular question is, what are your goals for your communities in the future? So if you want to tie that in with some of your upcoming projects or some upcoming ideas or plans that you have, or some other communities or events that you're working to gather more food for, or other ceremonies that you're preparing for, that also counts, or some more food preps that you're getting ready for. Joelle's family also were the ones who taught me how to identify arnica. So I know they're always busy with different things going on. Sometimes it may be hard to narrow it down a bit. So Yeah, we can get started, and this might be our last question for the group.
Also, maybe, oh, sorry, NiRae. I was just going to say maybe because we've got 2 questions left. So between your goals for communities in the future, and if you can tie that in maybe to a food or plant relative that's inspiring you lately, that would also be awesome to share.
It's perfect. Yeah, I would say, let me look at the question one more time so I don't butcher it. Goals for community. I know my specific goal with a lot of the work I've been doing is food justice, bringing back urban land justice and urban agriculture, and highlighting the Black and Indigenous farmers that we have right now that are doing the work. A lot of, especially in Seattle, a lot of different urban farms are giving back to food banks or selling very affordable produce in our area. I live in West Seattle, and I'm able to, although I partner with Black Farmers Collective and Yes Farm a lot on a lot of work, I also buy a lot of my produce from them as well, which I love to do. And going on to my project, it is creating a zine on the Three Sisters farming methods. And within that, it's also just depicting the essence of familial connections in Black and Indigenous farming. And so it's been really nice and eye-opening to have those connections, to really do a deep dive into urban farming, and especially from a Black and Indigenous lens, and also just get to see the intersectionality between our cultures, and how a lot of things trace back to our roots, and how we have a common enemy against us. And so I would say, in essence, what my goal is for my community is to have a healthier environment, have a healthier lifestyle, but that starts with acknowledging the different oppressions in our society, and it starts with just mobilizing and coming together. So yeah, and I'll pass it to you, Free. Sorry if you were doing
No,
something.
no, thank you, thank you. This means thank you in most Coast Salish communities. So if you see this, FYI, anybody in the group in the chat as well. Yeah, the question is, I know the question, I just have to see it again.
Yeah, so it was kind of a blending since we're kind of nearing the end. There's a couple questions. So like if there's either a plant teaching that's been helping you lately, as well as what are your plans for your community for the future? Oh, NiRae, did you have a thing to share?
Yeah, I totally forgot to mention the plant relative, but for me, it is definitely collard greens. It's a Black staple, and it goes back into slavery, and that was the only crop that was given to our ancestors to use. And it was a throwaway crop, but eventually we made it one of the best tasting sides. And then slave owners decided to add it to the Southern cuisine. But it very much came from Black farmers, and that was the only crops that we had. And so a lot of my own homegrown foods is collard greens, and I love to buy it. So I would say that's my plant relative.
Hey, actually, that's an incredible history. Thank you for sharing that. Yeah. So I think that the end goal for at least my project and really my work is to promote food sovereignty, and people, so that people understand that that we do have our traditional food systems here right at our feet. We can our something that's said among a lot of Coast Salish communities is like once the tide is out, the tables set. And I feel like there's a lot of health disparities in Indigenous communities because we've had to take a step away from our traditional food systems and rely on government foods, which have, historically been like the lowest quality and, least nutritious, and diabetes and heart disease and liver failure, non-alcoholic fatty liver disease, like these really affect our communities because of the contemporary lifestyle and diets that we have. So if people can, listen to the podcast episodes and walk away with some form of confidence or knowledge that they haven't had before, to go out into the woods and harvest, because there is plenty. We live in a very wealthy environment, and that's something that really impacts our community. So I also I'm not a fan of the pharmaceutical industry and what they've done to medicine. So medicine sovereignty, maybe, just kind of, people, learning or seeking medicines from knowledge keepers in their own community that will, that will help solve their issues or their problems in an ethical, healthy, natural manner, rather than seeking over-the-counter, easy, quick fix, not really like helpful drugs, that are like overly synthesized, and the people that make them, they don't care about you, and they don't care about the environment, and they don't care about your health. Honestly, they would probably really love it if you stayed unhealthy, and that's unfortunate that that's the world we live in today. I also hope that people learn and understand plant uses and indigenous technologies, and acknowledge native science as a legitimate science, and in that acknowledgement, seeing more representation in decisions made around our water systems and our forests, and things like that, because a healthy ecosystem equals healthy humans, and reciprocated. And my favorite plant, I know that's not the question, but my favorite plant is stinging nettle, because of all of the amazing health and medicinal benefits that it has. And just, stinging nettle. If you don't know about stinging nettle, get down. I'll pass it to Joelle. Hi, Shka.
So the goal for my community is to get higher education that works with the plants, and to contribute that to the traditional knowledge I already know, and to share that with the community somehow through like education or something, or my illustrations. Another personal goal of mine is to publish and illustrate a book with the plants in it, with their traditional names in the language, I guess. And then the traditional foods by the plants, they teach us time and rest to take care of ourselves. And my favorite out of them is probably Newness, the Mariposa lily. Yeah, that's all.
Beautiful. Thank you so much. And, I just really love hearing what you've all been able to share with us today, because quite frankly, that is true what you just shared, Joelle. At the end of the day, a lot of our traditional knowledge hasn't been validated by Western society, despite the fact that them using it to exploit us and then get money for it is weird. Colonialism is weird, right? It's really destructive. So I totally, put kudos out there, and hearts and prayers for you all as you kind of continue to pursue your education and protect us in that world. Because that's we need that. And I'm just so grateful to have been part of this panel with three of you, and for you guys sharing your incredible knowledge and experience in the community. And I'm so excited to see where your project